I only realised that my anxiety, my panic attacks came on at night when I had nothing to do, and I would stop there and just go, fucking hell, I'm so behind. Fucking hell, what about this? What about that? Oh my God. But when I was engaged during the day, I was fine. Boredom is such a killer. Boredom's a killer. People are just not creating enough excitement for themselves because we can say they're lazy, we can say they're uninspired. I mean, Tony Robbins, if you know who he is like the Mr. Personal Development guy, like the best, life coach on the market. He has been for like 40 years. He says there's no such thing as lazy people, just uninspired. People aren't lazy, they're just uninspired. So I think a lot of people that haven't found what the value yet, all comes back to that. They haven't found what the value, they haven't found what internally excites them, so they're getting bored. And more often than not, they're quickly filling that with things, and that's why.
And they haven't got a plan.
They're not planning to feel good. They're not planning to be excited. They're winging it, really. Like, you're waking up and going, I hope I feel good today. Like, I used to wake up and say, I hope I don't have a panic attack tonight. What the fuck? You can't do that. You know what I mean? Because your intuition and the universe, if you like, will give you the feedback that what's going on. Like, the way you feel right now, it's never an accident. I don't mean it's your fault, so anyone who's struggling with anxiety, depression, I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying it's not an accident. That's the universe's way of channeling this energy through you to remind you of where you're at. Feedback. Is it going well? Is it not? If you're feeling some shit emotions you don't like, there's some kind of feedback that's saying, listen, you need to get back in line. You need to do something that's exciting. You need to stop being bored. You need to stop turning to quick fixes. You need to understand what is it that internally makes you feel connected, where you're just calm. I'm like so calm now. Like, there's not much that bothers us, because I've set my life up what I value. I've got a coaching program that's doing very well. I work with a bunch of people where I get to help that allows me to live by my values. Yeah, I do things like this podcast, have quality conversations. It's all helping me live by my values, build my business, and kind of live my life's mission of just what I want to be and how I want my life to look. It's neutralized any negative emotions. Like you said right at the start of this podcast, you thought you were an anxious person. I thought I was. Now that's gone. I'm not an anxious person. How have I changed my identity? I changed what I valued.
I put myself in positions that gives us anxiety sometimes, but I am not an anxious person.
Yeah. Again, anxiety is just a feedback.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you need to not review, but look back at what you're doing, because the feelings that you're having right now is down to the habits that you've built. So you need to look back and say, what are my habits? If that's going out every weekend, then that's probably a reason why you could be...
gratification.
Exactly. So if you're doing something on a weekly basis or daily basis and you're feeling anxious or down, it possibly linked to the habits that you've built over a long period of time. That's why you're feeling like that.
Not possibly about it at all, Ben.
Exactly.
It's 100%
exactly,
the reason. You know what I mean? Like, I was reading something the other day. It was in Jeff Thompson's book. I don't know if you know who Jeff Thompson is.
I've listened to the podcast.
Yeah, he's sick. He's amazing. He's like the most articulate personal development guy I would say I've found. Like, the information that he articulates, and he's just so clever. He's very religious, so I'm not necessarily saying I'm a religious person. I don't necessarily agree, but I certainly think there's a higher power, something, whether it's just an energy system in the universe. But he says, like, the closest... one of the things he talked about religion, what probably the closest I've related to a religion would be Buddhism. And I think what I seen was a passage from something he was talking about the past, the present, and the future. And I might not be wording this right, but basically said there's no such thing as the past, the present, and the future. There's only what you've done, what you are doing, and what you are owed. So your future, what you are owed, will be a combination of what you've done and what you are doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. So people are like, oh, I'm in this position, but it's not my fault. It's this fault. It's that fault. I used to blame everything. I used to blame other personal trainers who were successful
for you not being successful.
For me not being successful. Like, fuck off, Sam.
It's like the thing.
If I had to go back in time, I would give myself a little slap and say, fuck off. Yeah, stop being a victim. Own up to what you're not doing. You're only getting triggered by them because they're successful and you're not. They're doing what you want to do. So why don't you change your thought process? Instead of blaming them, do something to change. You know, like I said, it was a combination. My future was going to be a combination of what have I done in the past, made loads of mistakes, fucked around, wasn't a very nice person, I'll hold my hands up and admit that, but it came from a place of insecurity. I didn't mean to be like that, but I made some mistakes, treated some people bad, did some bad things, and then in the present, I was doing fuck all about it. So that was my future. It was a combination of what I did and what I was doing that was given as what I was owed. So your future is what you are owed, and I related to that. I think that's a Buddhist teaching. Yeah. There's no such thing as past, present, future. Just what you've done, what you are doing, and what you are owed.
Well, you don't wake up overweight, do you?
No.
You wake up, you're overweight because of what, like you say, you're doing right now or what you've done.
Yeah.
So, like you say, you're owed to be overweight, or you're anxious, or because you've been drinking, you've done that. So I think that's...
But it's not your fault, and that's what you convince yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's not your fault.
We justify that it's not our fault. And listen, there's some things that happen to people that, listen, it's not their fault. Like if someone's struggling with anxiety and depression because they're overweight, but the reason that they're overweight is they've had a health issue.
Yeah.
That was not your fault. We can't turn it back around on them and say, listen, you need to take responsibility. There's a difference between taking responsibility and saying it's your fault. Because saying it's your fault is essentially taking the blame for things that you shouldn't be taking the blame on. Like you cannot control a health issue. If you broke your leg, right, and you couldn't walk for a year, and then you are struggling with it, because listen, if I got rehabilitated now, I think I would be struggling with emotional eating because I do like food. I really would be struggling with emotional eating again, because what could I do? I can't exercise. I can't do what I need to do. I would literally be looking for something to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
So a lot of people can get a health issue. They don't exercise. Before you know it, 5 years, they haven't really been doing what they wanted to do. They're like, shit, I'm 3-4 stone overweight. I work with a bunch of people who've had knee replacements, hip replacements, who've maybe got injured, who had a health condition, and all of a sudden, now they're massively overweight. Why? Something changed. It got them down, but they still acted in a way that caused them to eat more food. Like, you can't take responsibility for the illness or the injury. It's not your fault. Stop blaming yourself for it. However, the way you responded, I get it. I know it was hard, but that's what's caused you to become overweight. Yeah. I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's my health condition. It's like, well, no. Your health condition didn't cause you to stay in a calorie surplus. It didn't affect the way your body partitions calories and nutrients. You ate more than you moved. Yes, it was harder for you, but you still responded in that way, you know? So it's about drawing the line between what is my responsibility and what's not. Like, don't blame yourself for everything. But I think these people who blame themselves for everything and say it's my fault, they don't actually take any responsibility. They just say it's my fault and don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.